And start recording the meeting. We'll go ahead and get started. Before we jump into the ESSER discussion, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Arntzen for some quick updates.
Happy Tuesday morning. We wanted to share information I believe that is all about timing on how districts go in and make the application for this fiscal year. So hope everyone is well, and it is a very rainy day here in Helena, but that's a good thing because as I was on the land board yesterday, fire season is upon us, and it's not just what happens in our valley, it happens all across Montana. So everyone stay well. With that, let's continue.
Thank you, Superintendent. So we've got a pretty small agenda today. Just going to have our finance experts, Jay and Ken, go through the timeline for the ESSER withdrawals one more time and any updates that they might have. But the majority of this meeting, we just wanted to answer any questions that you might have as the application window is open. So I'll turn it over to Jay.
Good morning, everybody. This is Jay. So just a quick update. I'll run through the dates themselves, and then also I can give you a little insight as to where we're at with submissions and approvals. And so in total, we had about 430 schools that has an application out there. Of that, we've got 160 that have not started the application yet. We have 168 that were submitted, and we've approved just about 50. And so there's quite a bit of activity out there. There's still some work it looks like that needs to be done. So the reminders that the deadlines for I'm going to break this into two parts. The ESSER funds application is June 30th. And we have, for any of those who have already submitted and have received a final approved application, they do have the ability in the e-grant system to go ahead and initiate a cash request for payment that'll go out on the 26th. Okay, so at any time from this date, from today forward, if somebody submits one and once Ken approves it, please go ahead and feel free to go out there and get those cash requests, because we'd like to get as many as we can paid out in this year to make sure you guys make it easy on your guys' fiscal year in closing. And then for the ESSER related services grant, we had sent out an email that stated we had to make an adjustment to the enrollment numbers for the equitable share calculation. And so that should be completed and reopened by Friday the 30th. And because there was actually a bit of a close down period for that, we are going to do an extension of the application submission date out to the 17th to allow schools plenty of time to go out there and complete that. And as always, if there's any concerns or if there's problems with that, by all means, please let us know, because OPI is always its full intention is to work with everybody to make sure that we can get your application submitted and get your cash to you to help out with all the COVID related issues. And then last date would be for the application itself is that if there isn't a need to do any type of a budget realignment, the window for the submitting amendments is going to be set through September 1st of 2020. Okay. And then after this first cash request payment on the 26th, then the grant itself will roll over to just the general cycle with all of our e-grants applications, where the schools need to submit their cash requests on the 25th of each month, and then we make payments out on the 10th of each month. The final approval of this grant itself, again, this does extend out to September 30th, 2020 for the final obligation date, with the final liquidation date of the funds, October 31st of 2022. So with that, I'll kind of pass it over. It's pretty quick, not a lot of updates, but again, if anybody has problems with the applications, Ken and I are always available, as well as with submission of the cash requests process itself.
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate that update. And Jay is your main point of contact if you have any issues with that application. So Jay, could you post your email and phone number in the chat box for us?
Yeah. Yes.
And
I'm gonna put,
oh yeah, go ahead.
So I'll put Ken's as well too, because Ken's helping out as well.
Sounds good. And then Christy, when she sends out the recording later today, Christy will send out the timeline one more time so that you have it. This is a meeting where actually we have a standing meeting with the state education associations on Tuesdays. So they're in this meeting as well. We wanted to combine the two. So at this time, we can turn it over to any questions that you have, or if any of the education advocates on the line have any updates they want to provide, please do. Are there any questions or comments from our superintendents on the line for Jay?
It's a quiet morning.
It is. I guess that's a good thing if there's no questions.
That is a good sign.
Oops, sorry, I was muted there. Question from Kathy. Can they use the ESSER funds to pay teachers to provide summer school? Jay or Ken, do you know the answer to that?
Yeah, this is Ken. The advice I've been giving to a lot of questions like this is that there is the need to relate expenditures, including salary and benefits, to the disruption of the COVID-19 virus. So that using the funds to pay for overtime, new staff, additional time that wasn't in the budget are all acceptable uses of the ESSER related or the ESSER funds. But if you're looking at taking an existing budgeted and funded position and you want to pay a portion of that, then that becomes suspect in terms of, is that really a COVID-19 expenditure? So for the specific question about paying teachers to provide summer school, again, I think the key is this additional time that's needed, which I've seen a lot of people starting to put into their applications, is to provide additional summer instruction to try to help make up for time lost during the shutdown. Does that make sense to everyone? And are there questions about that?
Thanks, Ken. That's an important clarification to make sure that the services are directly tied to COVID interruptions, not something that was previously budgeted before COVID.
So Ken, I'm going to put you on the spot. This is Elsie. Is that a yes or a no question answer?
It's a it depends answer.
It depends answer. So if I'm on
school, if it's not if it wasn't an already budgeted and funded position to teach summer school.
Thank you.
And happy to provide, Ken can provide any clarifications on that if necessary. But the next question is for Jay probably. So is the related services grant open right now? Did the bugs get fixed?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. So no, it's currently not open, but again, we're hoping by Friday, which is the 19th, it will be open. Yep. And again, just as a reminder is that there is an extension of the actual submission date out to July 17th.
And then there is a question about the last date for obligations of the funds. Is it September 30th, 2020? Oh, you already answered that. Okay, no, 2020.
Yes, 2022, that's correct, yep.
And then from Callie J, do you see that question? It's kind of a technical one.
Yeah, and so for the self-sort save later, I need to talk to my program on that. And if there is an issue, if you guys are seeing something wrong with your IDC, shoot me or Ken an email, and we can just verify that with what we've got in our records. And if we need to make an amendment to that, we can. And as for the, opportunities to amend throughout the grant period, I you know, Ken can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I mean, I don't think our intention is just to hold it to one. You know, as we go out this, we understand that there's going to be adjustments and new things are going to pop up because we're talking going all the way out to 2022. So I would definitely believe that there'd be other opportunities to make an amendment. So.
Thanks, Jay. And then we have a question from Scott that's probably directed more towards Ken. Can you use the funds to make a facility more COVID safe? You can use the funds for additional cleaning and sanitation and things like that. But since you used the word infrastructure, Scott, I'll let Ken answer that, but he might need a little bit more clarification on what you mean by infrastructure.
Well, you can certainly use the CARES funds in order to improve or to prepare for a resurgence of the COVID. However, and this isn't specifically to ESSER, but for any federal grant, if you're using the funds to make a capital expenditure, and so for example, if you're saying what we're going to do is to construct a new classroom, then we should talk about that because there are requirements that the feds have that are different than say just normal expenditures. And another example of that is we've had the question, can we buy an automobile with the ESSER funds? And my reply to that always is the same thing. If you buy an automobile, the usefulness of that automobile will extend beyond the period of the grant. And therefore, there's requirements with the federal government to either give the car back to them or contact the federal government to say, what do you want us to do with it? Or to transfer it to another federal grant. You just get into complications if you're doing that. So the idea is you want to use the ESSER funds to make a capital expenditure. Please give Jay or I a call and we'll discuss it with you to determine what's possible.
And then Ken, do you see Dale's follow-up and Scott's follow-up to that in the chat?
So again, those kinds of minor expenditures, I would call these, I think are acceptable.
Yep, and that would be a good use of the funds, creating automatic or non-touch fixtures. Let's see, we have a question from Superintendent Barron.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess what we should do is, I mean, I could say that OPI will allow an additional amendment, and what we can do internally is we'll come up with the data and then we can convey that out, or communicate that to everybody out in the field. If anybody has suggestions of a time frame, if they're thinking, you know, we look at September 1st of this year as the first potential amendment, and then potentially extend out a secondary one September, or you know, before I guess the September 21 time frame, or maybe September 2021. So that would be another option. So, but Ken, do you have any thoughts on that?
So yeah, I think that there are a couple of schools who've already indicated that they are not sure how they are going to spend the money. And again, recognizing that this is a 2-year period and that none of us really know what's going to happen in the fall or what's going to happen with return to school, and are there going to be further interruptions. I think we have to be able to allow amendments to some point in the future. The thing that I would be careful of is if we allow amendments up to the final day, then we're starting to run into an issue of, do we really have a plan to spend the money, or is it going to end up being returned to the federal government? But particularly because of the way this comment was said, you know, I agree, we have to extend the ability to amend out into the future.
Thanks, Ken. And on a related note too, the Reopening Montana Schools task forces are going to have their guidance and recommendations coming out the week of June 22nd. And so keep an eye out for those. Those might provide helpful recommendations on use of the funds. So are there any other questions or comments at this time, or updates from the Ed Advocates? All right. Well, like I said, we don't want to take up too much of your time. This was just an opportunity to answer any outstanding questions you might have. We'll share out, again, Jay and Ken's contact information along with the timeline later today and the recording. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Anything else before we close? Superintendent?
Just want to say thank you. I think the questions that were in the chat box are about flexibilities, and I appreciate the questions. One of the things that I want you to all understand is that we're here to serve and to be as flexible as possible with the uses that you have that pertain to your students. So with that, everyone, please stay well, stay healthy, enjoy your summer as we continue to go forward. Stay well. Thank you.